anyone that is running a company or starting a company is afraid that, okay, I may not be successful, so I'm just going to hold off on the idea. I'm just going to hold off on the time it's ready. The time is never going to be ready, right? It's never going to be ready. If you have an idea and it's halfway baked out, push it out. And if it fails, you learn something. Well, I would say if you have an idea, the first thing that you need to do is, go talk to somebody. Okay. So you're not necessarily. It's one thing when we talk to ourselves, to our inner being. We're always right. You can still pay people without making profits. You take some of your equity and go fundraise with it. And that money that comes in will help pay for other people. If you're running a company, you want to make money, you want to run profit, you got to pay people. You have to be comfortable in talking about money and all these things. Money comes and goes. Money is relative in the sense that you have to respect money, when you have it. You have to respect money when you don't have it.
Welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Regan. And today we have the founder and CEO of Adjuma. This guy has worked at NBA, US Department of War,
U.S. Department of
State, and then the U.S. Army.
Yes.
That's an interesting experience. Welcome, Gimbala, to Unscripted.
Hey, thanks, Ray.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
I heard your driver was delaying you. Have you latched him?
It's Ghana.
All right, so Unscripted. So the whole idea is to just talk to you, learn about you, talk about your journey, your experience, where everything started from, and what you're building. Because I checked your LinkedIn and crazy experience.
Yeah.
So who's Gimbala for the people watching who don't know you?
Who's Gimbala? Okay, so I was born and raised in Nima. I grew up in Nima. My family is in Nima, right? So wow. I'm a Nima boy. Somewhere around 2001, I went to the States. My parents have been in the States, so it was easy transition for me. I was 13 at that point. And, from there on, just went to school, in the public housing in the Bronx, just kind of focused a lot more on my studies more than anything else. And, the theme of my life has always been, right, the opportunities that I get and taking those opportunities and kind of just propelling them and excelling them to where I am today, so one thing after the other. From internships in high school, I started working for Hillary Clinton when she was a senator in New York. Okay. Worked in that campaign when she ran for president, and then transitioned to the State Department when she went to the State Department. All this time, just being a 21-year-old. Wow. So based out of Europe, doing public affairs, public diplomacy. I got tired of that a little bit and decided, to go into the Department of Defense to do Army, and, did that for 4 years and deployed and came back to the State Department and then went into the private sector, and then things changed, right? So it's been a journey for me, but, true, at the core of me, I still come to Ghana. I'm still, still that Nima boy.
How did it feel like, coming from Nima to kind of working in some of these places?
It's surreal, right? You never grow up in Nima thinking about, being surrounded by dignitaries, ambassadors, presidents, vice presidents, kings and queens, right? That was never part of the calculation, right? It's funny because I think it was last September, at the UN General Assembly meeting, the UNGA meeting. So Nana Addo was there and we had a meeting. And I was just joking around with him, us Nima boys made it very far, in New York. And it's true because when we were going to school in Nima, I went to St. Cecilia, right? Okay. Right on the Kanda Ridge Highway. So we spent a lot of time, when we're not in class, when we're skipping class, just being Nima boys, just, going around the neighborhoods. There was never a moment in my life where I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the US and I'm going to go I'm going to go work at the State Department. I'm going to end up going to go work at the NBA and so on. And that was never part of the calculation. It just happens that, I focused on the right things. My mind was very clear about where I wanted to be or where I wanted to see myself, and as the opportunities came, I said yes to them and, just took on the challenges as they go.
Yeah. I think one time we spoke to a designer that worked at Adidas. And I like to speak to this because, you wear their shoes, you watch NBA, you do this, you want to see how it feels like to work there. He was a designer, and when he was talking about it, I was like, wow, this is something I would like to do.
Yeah.
But right now I'm moving away from design a little bit. But talent acquisition at NBA, how did you get into it? And what was like a normal day like working over there?
Yeah, well, I started talent acquisition just about, 10, 15 years ago. And, for anyone that doesn't know what talent acquisition is, it's essentially recruiting, right? And it's another word, talent acquisition is more the formal word for it. Literally, the NBA called me, right? So, I remember it was spring of 2001 or something like that. I just had my second daughter. I'm lying on the couch with her on my chest, and I get a call from a headhunter, and the NBA was looking for head of talent acquisition, and somehow they got my name, and I was like, NBA? I thought, so I thought they were talking about like an MBA program, right?
Right, no, like MBA.
No, it's like, no, National Basketball Association. Is like, oh, okay, sure, I'm interested. And what's funny when I talk about that story, I took an offer because I was transitioning out of WEX. I took an offer, which was in a global fintech company. So I took an offer to another company, and so it's in between, when I'm leaving one company and starting another company. So I'm just chilling, having a good summer. And then I get a call from the NBA. So it's like, all right, sure, we'll go through the process. And, the process was taking a little longer. And I remember somehow in the process, I said to them, it's like, look, I already have an offer. If you guys want to move quick, let's go. If not, I already have it. I'm good to go. And they're like, oh no, being a part of the process, it's good. It's good to be part of the process. I was like, well, you're gonna have to make me an offer that I can't refuse, right? And that's how I ended up in the NBA. But it's as crazy and exciting as you could possibly think of, right? And my responsibility were really kind of just working with the team, working with the league, to recruit, people, to recruit employees. And then if the teams, need any sort of guidance or anything like that, we're there to provide them with guidance and so on. So it's incredibly exciting for me as, I was a young VP, I became a VP in corporate America at a very young age, my mid-20s. So it was a continuation of that. And for me, it was exciting because, I'm a big Knicks fan. Being in New York, being in my hometown, NBA is headquartered there. So it was great. But then also, in my tenure, NBA was building the league app that folks were using today, right? So part of my responsibility, or if not all of my responsibility, was to recruit all the tech talent that the NBA needed. So there's about 300 of them to build out this NBA League app now that's launched, right? So because the NBA had a direct-to-consumer strategy, they wanted to bring everything in-house. So it was crazy to think about, all right, so how do you get 300, 400 techies to come in and, build this, right? They have to be passionate about the NBA. They have to be passionate, but they also have the skills that is needed, the technology to come in and do that. So it's exciting. So every day was different. It's a different challenge. Being in New York, you're competing with, the Twitter, at that point, Twitter was still there, before X, Twitter, Spotify, Facebook, before Meta, you had all these big companies. So you were competing with these big companies in New York City. But the NBA had a little bit of edge, right? Because of the brand and the cloud, and it had, so it was exciting. So you work really hard, and then at the end of the night, you go watch a game, and that's exciting.
I remember seeing that app, And the question that came to mind, what does it take to work in there? What does it take to be part of the team that is building there? Because I think that was like 2 years ago. I don't remember. And I feel like it will take a lot to even get there as a designer. Because I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
Right? It's good. Now, one thing I think you are fascinated about is talent acquisition. Because I think I looked at Adjuma, and when I was talking to Mr. Curry, I mentioned something about connecting people, especially Africans, to job opportunities and all that. Working at NB and maybe your experience in talent, what do you think some of these talents mistake they make when they are, applying for jobs and all that? Because people are crying for jobs.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just the MBA, right? I mean, if you think about in any industry, when people think about jobs and applying for jobs, the first thing is, do you have the right CV? Do you have the right resume? And can you tell a story within that resume, right? It's your resume telling a story of your experiences, right? If you can capture that, that's a good place to start, right? It's not just about, I was the head of basket weaving for year this and year that. That's it. No, you were the head of basket weaving for 5 years. And in that 5 years, you did X, Y, and Z. This is the type of return that it contributed to the organization. And you won an award or 2 or 3, right? You're telling that story in your CV. It's a conversation that you're having with people. And the first thing a recruiter sees is your CV, your resume, and what they're trying to look at that and tell themselves the story of you. So most people are just, listing things and just capturing things. And, it's funny because when we started Adjuma in Ghana, we started looking at many, and even on the folks in the company that we were hiring, looking at their CVs. And you start to realize very quickly, there's incredible amount of talent in Ghana. People have done many different things, many different challenges, and exposed many different things. But they're not telling enough of their stories on these resumes, right? We ask them for a portfolio, and they don't have any portfolio. The CVs have a lot of typos, so it's not formatted, right? They take the template format, right?
They don't put a lot of work in it.
Right. But again, it's a whole maintenance culture that we can talk about in Ghana. But it shows you from there, right? But those things are all important because if I'm a recruiter and I'm seeing hundreds and thousands of resumes a day, and then I see your resume and your name is on one side and you have a different type of, I'm not gonna look. You could be the best talent in the world, you're not gonna pass that through. So those are the things that we've seen, and those are the challenges achieved. But look, contrary to what you see in the marketplace, there's still a lot of jobs for people to apply to. And sometimes it's not applying for the big brands and the big names, right? It's a very different beast in those environments. The MBAs, the Facebook, the Spotifys, and all these different things. The big brands, there's a lot of different, pressures that come with being in those spaces, and especially in corporate America. And I think, for a large part, you want to start to kind of scale yourself in different places, gain the experiences in different places. I have a very diverse set of experiences. And I can say to anybody, I can go to any company, and I've seen their challenge before, right? You can put me somewhere, and I've seen it before because you've accumulated this diverse set of experiences, and you're learning all throughout that process.
I'm learning so much. You said something about the CV, right?
Right.
I think 2021, when Web3 started, I was working in a crypto company and I was head of design. So we're hiring for designers. That is when I understood why people were not getting jobs. Because they're sending the CVs and you're getting like 50 CVs a day and you can't go through everything. Right. So you're kind of like just scanning. And you understand why people are not getting the jobs, because you open one CV. Some people make it too populated. Some people make it less. Some people don't put the necessary information. Some people don't put the links, like you said, to their portfolio, because you're looking, you read the CV, you're like, okay, good, now show me something.
Show me your portfolio, and it's just the links don't work, but it's just like, those extra details, right? And one of the things that in Adjuma we talk about a lot is, especially here in Ghana, where there's so many educated people. Everybody has multiple degrees, right? So people will have 5 pages, 6 pages of CV.
No one is going to read that.
But they're only 20 years old, right? And it's like, hold on a second. You don't have that much experience, right? So focus on what is really important? Where did you gain the most valuable experiences, right? And then you put in the CV, but make sure your links work. Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. If you have a portfolio that you want to share on GitHub, those things are up to date. I shouldn't be trying to spend time and unnecessary time in trying to search for you. Yeah, it's just too much.
Do you think degree or educational degree is important in some of these big corporations?
Not necessarily. Right, it's all about the experiences. Because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, in some industries, if you're in the professional service industry, so professional services, as in, you know, if you're in a legal environment, accounting,
doctor, medical,
you know, right, those you need those degrees, you need those accreditations. But beyond that, it's all about experiences. It's all about your ability to be able to recognize a problem and solve it very quickly. Right. It's all about not fearing to fail. You know, we talk about that, you know, a lot earlier, right? And the speed in which you can move through projects, right? Your degree doesn't, I mean, it gives you foundational basics, understanding of kind of the job that you're doing, but the experiences are really what's important, right? And to me, and I've had many companies, I've founded many companies, and to me, when I look at CVs, I'm looking at the different experiences that people have and the different challenges and projects that they've had and they've worked on. And how are they going to translate that into the company that I have, right? And the skills that they're going to bring to that. So I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, you have to go get a PhD in marketing to be a successful marketer. No, you don't necessarily need that. But have you been exposed to those experiences, you know, to be able to put a marketing strategy together, you know, make sure that you're hitting specific KPIs and so on. Experiences is always leading the way.
Why did you work at the Army?
Why did I work in the Army? Why did I work in the Army? You know, so for a long time, you know, so I was at the State Department doing public affairs, public diplomacy, and I was based at the US Embassy in London. And a lot of the questions, you know, and we did a lot of press work. A lot of the questions that I was getting by the public are questions about the Army and what's going on in Afghanistan and so on. So I thought it would be great. It would be great for my experience to understand the other side of the coin, right? You know, and I don't know how much you know about kind of just the U.S. government structure in general, but you know, there's a clear divide between the State Department, which is very much about diplomacy. Right? And the Department of Defense, which is all not about diplomacy. It's all about really, you know, what is our posture, our military posture internationally, and, you know, in some cases, how we set up, we show up domestically. So I thought for my career at that point, because for a long time, I wanted to be a U.S. ambassador, right?
Okay.
You know, at that point in my career, it'd be good to have an understanding and experience of what is, you know, the Department of Defense doing in Afghanistan. And that's what I did. You know, I went into the Army and within 6-7 months, I was in Afghanistan. I was not planning for that, you know, and then you learn, you know, you make friends, you learn new skills, you gain experiences. I always say to people, you know, the best skill that I got from the Army is managing people's egos, right? You know, so that in itself, if you can do that, you know, you can survive anywhere.
How are you managing people's ego?
How are you managing people? Man, there's so many characters in the military, right? There's so many characters, and everybody, right, with the ranks and everyone has their own ego, right? So you learn to understand, you know, as you go through your career that, you know, there's at the core of it is, you know, building people-to-people relationships, right? How I build my relationship with you allows me to be able to be successful in what I need to get delivered and get done, right? You know, so how do I manage, you know, your ego, your needs, and, you know, all those things, right? Those are important skill sets for you to have.
The companies you started, can you mention them and maybe the reason why they started?
Yeah, so in Ghana, we have AUMA, and so AUMA Workforce Solutions, right? So and it's interesting. I started AUMA because, right, and I'll say in the last 2-3 years, as I visit Ghana and I talk to people in Ghana, and people are looking for jobs and all of that. And it became very apparent that there's no really central place for people to look for jobs.
Yeah.
And the job platforms that exist out there are either, there was a couple of times where I went to look for jobs and the jobs have expired for months.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't even know if the job is real or not. Right.
True.
You don't even know if the employers are real or not. Right. The ads all over the platform, viruses all over the platform and so on. So to me, it was very easy to say, okay, look, we can do this. We can start a company that will work with employers to be like the central point of jobs when you come to Ghana or where you're in the continent, right? And we created that platform to do this. So that's what AUMA is doing that. Then we have Ascent Capital Group, which is really more for real estate, portfolio where we build multifamily housing, right? My team always hear me say, and I lament, and I always, I'm lamenting to them about when you come into Ghana, when you visit Ghana, there's a lot of advertisements about luxury housing.
True.
Put $70,000 down to get a luxury house. The average Ghanaian barely makes $500 a month. Why were we building luxury houses for them? The majority of Ghanaians just want a place where they can sleep. They don't want, they don't want fingerprints to go into a pool or a gym.
They don't care about that.
They don't care about that, right?
They just want to sleep.
They just want to sleep. They just want to sleep, right? Why are we wasting time in building? Now, I get it. There's business, capitalism. That's what people want, and people think that it's an investment. Great. But think about that. Well, how much of the population can afford those properties versus, what we're doing is building multifamily units, apartment buildings, where I don't care much about the making luxurious profits, but it's really for the majority of Ghanaians that can't afford to put in $70,000. How many Ghanaians can afford to put $70,000 down? So that's what we're doing, right? We focus on that and building those residential properties. So that's what Ascent Capital Group does. We have Easy Breezy Venture. Easy Breezy Venture is a venture where we are looking to essentially provide like a venture or in the States we have like incubators, right? An incubator where if you have an idea, people can come in. Our goal is to launch 10 companies every 90 days in Ghana, right? Not because we feel like, you need 10 companies every 90 days, but there's so much talent, there's so many ideas out there, but people don't have the capital or resources to be able to start those things. So that's what Easy Breezy Ventures is doing, right? You come in with your idea, you vet it. If it makes sense, if it's something that you can go to market with, business sense, we'll help you. We'll put resources, as long as, within 90 days, you can have a prototype that you can launch. You can do that. Not every idea is going to be successful. Not every company is going to be successful. But the ones that do, then we can start to foster that in the community here in Ghana, and then we'll continue to grow them and see where we go. We need to build industries, right? In this country, we need to build industries. That's something that we don't have today, right? In Ghana, there's no industry. So we need to be able to inspire that and create an environment for all of those things. So that's what Easy Breezy Venture is doing. So by August, we're going to be releasing our first company. So I wouldn't announce it now, but you see that come.
At least we had that first.
Yeah, at least you had it. It's very social, so people are gonna love it. So that's coming up. We also have a Black Star Media Entertainment Group, which is a New York-based company that we're gonna be launching here in Ghana. And the Black Star Media Entertainment Group is essentially a brand for many different creative entities that can fall under, right? We have Talk Factory, a podcast, and the team is going to kill me for launching that, right? But that's going to be launching.
Okay.
So we have Talk Factory that we're going to be launching that. We have other sports related type entities that are going to be falling under Black Star Media Entertainment. But it's more of a production house where folks will have ideas. They come in, and the resources exist. There's studios, resources for them to be able to use, and push all the ideas out. Someday, you should come into our campus and see what we got going on over there.
I will be there. Building all these businesses, right? What's one thing Gimbala has learned? Because did I pronounce the name right?
Gimbala.
Okay. Yeah. What's one thing you've learned? Because I think when we spoke earlier, you mentioned something about people fear failure.
Yeah.
It looks like you don't care about that. You're just starting.
Yeah, so and especially here, right? The reason why you see markets in the US and Europe that are incredibly successful, especially the startup culture, it's because people are not afraid to fail, right? Here in Ghana, there's a false sense of I don't know what it is, but I think anyone that is running a company or starting a company is afraid that I may not be successful, so I'm just gonna hold off on the idea. I'm just gonna hold off on the time it's ready. The time is never gonna be ready, right? It's never gonna be ready. If you have an idea and it's halfway baked out, push it out. And if it fails, you learn something, right? You learn how to start a company, you learn how to make decisions, you learn how to make marketing. Failure is good. And in our culture, in this society, it's frowned upon, right? Oh yeah, he started this thing, he failed, it didn't work. And that is not a good way to have a creative, energizing economy, right? We have to feel like, okay, we have an idea, let's push it out, let's see where it goes. It's never gonna be 100%. It's never gonna be 100%. Every one of my teams, in different companies and initiatives that we have ideas, and I'm the biggest ambassador for all of them, right? Okay, you have an idea, what have you worked, ask them this question, and if they have the answers, how can I help you launch this thing, right? And then we'll go about in launching them. But to have a successful, productive, startup community here in Ghana, economy in Ghana, we have to not be afraid of failing. Right? That's the only way that you learn. That's the only way that you can be even more creative, right? You can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, I want it to be perfect before I can launch it. No, it's not going to work that way. Time is never on your side.
Time is never on your side. Right? I think most times people feel like they're going to invest a lot into this, so why should they fail? And because of that, they now not start.
Right.
I'll give an example. I think 2 years ago or a year ago, I wanted to start a company, do delivery, because the delivery guys in this country were annoying me. So I wanted to take upon myself, say, hey, I'm going to have delivery guys in this country that will be working for myself in case I want to order something, right? Long story short, it failed. And when I was starting, you mentioned something about how big ideas, you don't have to have, it was just an idea. I was like, you know what, let me just start it. I invested money into Moto. And this people were just... But what happened was, after that experience, there were so many things I realized that I did wrong at the beginning.
Right, exactly.
That I'm not going to do the next time. But then my money is gone.
But money is relative, right? Money is relative. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, right? Money is relative. Now, I would say in this economy, in this country, there's a lack of infrastructure for you to be able to come up with an idea and be successful, right? The infrastructure doesn't exist, right? So when you have an idea, I want to start a delivery company, you should feel safe enough to know that, okay, there is a network of either people or resources that I can come to that can get a design together, can create a pitched book. I can talk about how do you make money and all of these different things that before I'm ready to launch, I have a pretty good idea of what the market looks like and so on, right? That doesn't exist today. or I have not seen that, right? It doesn't exist today. But it doesn't mean that you failed, right? You started something, you learned, maybe you didn't make money off of it, right? But you learned something. So the next time you go about doing it again, it's going to be 100% different than the first time that you did it, right? So maybe you're not going to spend money early on. Maybe the motorbike is not the first thing that you buy, right? So all of those things, that's what I mean, right? Like you have to not, I say it and I'm incredibly privileged and I recognize that in the sense that, I've had great experiences. I have money to be able to pay for all of these different things. But again, I would say, that's what I should be doing, right? I should be able to invest in resources for the talent that exists around me, right? To be able to do and share those ideas.
You said something about starting a company, right? What are like the key things that should look at? Because now you've mentioned people not being afraid to fail, right? So they should start with the half-baked idea. So what do we look out for?
Well, I say if you have an idea, the first thing that you need to do is, go talk to somebody. Okay. So you're not necessarily. It's one thing when we talk to ourselves, to our inner being. We're always right. Right? Right? You're always, when you talk to yourself, you're always right. All your ideas sound good and it sounds great. But when you check with someone, right? Talk to someone, it's like, hey, look, I have this idea. What do you think, right? And then that person may also have a perspective that you didn't think about, right? That could shape that idea a little bit, to start bringing it into focus, right? So you start doing that, talk to a few people, run that idea, understand, okay, when it has legs, as they say, right? If it has legs, it means, there's interest, more people, and depending on the idea, understand the market, right? Who's the player in the marketplace today? Who are the key, companies that I'm potentially going to be competing with? Is it a market need? Is it a problem that I'm trying to solve today, right? Okay. With Adjuma, we know there are multiple problems that we're trying to solve, right? And we know from our conversations with employers what they want to see when it comes to a technology platform that helps to make recruiting and hiring easier. So we build features in response to the surveys that these employers have. So you want to test all of those things out, have those conversations, understand the market, understand who you're competing with. Is there already a product that already exists, right? And it's not going to take you months to do this, right? You can do all of these things in a couple of days, right? And then at some point you're going to sit there and weigh out and say, okay, there's a pros and cons here. Does it still have legs that I can go forward with? And if you're going to go forward, don't go at it alone, right? Bring other people to it, okay. Right? It takes a village. People will bring ideas, right? There's certain skill sets that you are not good at, other people are, bring them in. If you're going to do it all, you're going to be incredibly biased and the product is not going to work the way that you want it to work, right? So I'm always thinking about, all right, so I have this idea, let me run it with 5, 6, 7 people, before I even start to spend money on it, right? And then if all of those things check out, what does the market look like? What is all of those things check out? Then you can go through the legal process of actually, registering. Every country is a little bit different. In the US, you can build a full baked idea company before you even register anything. In Ghana, it's the other way around. You have to do all these paperwork, and you're lucky if your registration certificate comes in a week. In a week or 90 days, right? So all of those things, but I say the first thing that you want to do is stop talking to yourself when you have an idea and talk to other people and see if it has legs, right? If it's a viable idea, does it solve a problem? And you always want to, if it's a for-profit, idea, how do you make money? If you can't answer that question, then go be an NGO, right? How do you make money, right? Yeah. If that's one of the top 5 questions you should be asking yourselves in the first place.
At what point do you determine if you want to start putting money into the business?
If you start putting money,
if you want to start
putting money into the business. I mean, if you have depending on the idea, if you have a solid idea, right? And if it's a product that you're developing, you know that you can't develop a product without, getting a code base, right? Getting, a GitHub to build a repository and all of these things, right? Now, if in your world, you have a lot of really talented friends, right? So I'm sure you can come together and agree to start this thing, without spending, a single cent, right? You can do that. But at some point, when you have a fully fledged idea to take it to market, you may need to spend a little bit of money, right? You're gonna have to spend money to do some marketing. You're gonna have to spend money to do logo designs or anything like that. It's very, very difficult today to have an idea and not spend. I mean, it costs money to even create domains. It costs money to all of those things, right? I mean, it's fraction, but it costs money. So this is why, the idea of Easy Breezy Venture is very important to me, because all of those things, that the initial startup costs and the capital that is needed, that is something that an incubator can handle for you, right? If you have a solid idea, right? So you work on idea, you polish the idea, you have a solid team. When you get to a point where you're like, okay, let's start coding, then okay, the incubator can give you the resources that you need to code, and then obviously to launch, right? Once you do that, then you're good to go. But very few companies start with, I'm going to start an idea in my garage. There's no garages in Ghana, very, very few garages in Ghana. And there's no infrastructure for you to be able to tap into resources. As a startup company in the US today, you will have AWS credits, right? You have AWS credits, you have Microsoft Azure credits, you have, Google domain, $6 a user, right? You could do all of these different things really, really cheap, right? Here, right, in Ghana, it's all about profits, right? US market share, how do you win the market share? Less about profits. You can go, I think Reddit is public and it's never made a profit in its life, right? Tesla, took a very long time for Tesla to start making profits. But in the West, it's all about market share. In Ghana, it's all about how quickly can I start making money, right? So you always have to think about that, as you're building your idea and you're building your product, you're taking it to market.
Yeah, I think I was even going to ask a question about that, about making profits. You said with Tesla, it took them long. Yeah. But then in Ghana, people want to make the money quick.
Yeah, because it's just the environment and the economy and, the struggle the you in.
Yeah, right? I mean, Why should I wait for 5 years?
Right. Why should I wait 5 years to make profits?
So for someone watching, because I want to make some of these things practical as much as possible. Say I started a business with friends. We've been in it for like 2 years. At what point do we say, okay, now this is coming in, so maybe we can start paying people. Maybe we've started making profits. I don't know if you get.
Yeah, I mean, you can still pay people without making profits, right? What do I mean by you have, right? So when you start a company and you have an idea, and especially if you register the company, you have equity, right? You have equity as the founder, as the owners of the company, and then you have to go take that equity, and find investors, right? And that, so you can take 20% of your equity per se and go fundraise, right? You haven't made a single dollar, but you have a solid idea, you have a team, you have a research, right? You take some of your equity and go fundraise with it. And that money that comes in will help pay for other people and then pay for the company and the support and all of those things. And also what it does too is it gives your company a valuation, right? So, right, if I'm putting 20% of my equity and they're giving me $1 million for 20%, well, how much then is the other 80%, right, worth, right? So it gives you an idea where you are in the marketplace and so on. So you can run a company, you can pay people, you can do all of those things without having profit, right? Now, it's very important that you keep your expenses low if you don't have profits, but that's why you fundraise. That's why you seek out investors and all of these things, right? And that's what I also mean about infrastructure, right? Because in this country, people rather invest in real estate because it's safe, right? Relatively speaking, right? But if you think about how do you create industries, how do you create economies, large economies that go beyond just the borders of Ghana, the continent, and so on, you need these investors to start looking at, all right, how do I invest into a startup company? If I invest into $5,000 in your company, right, that will go a significant way in Ghana, right, for you to be able to get your idea together and pay a team. Within 6-7 months, you'll be able to launch a product. It goes a long way.
You mentioned something about investors, right?
Yeah.
I had a question about investment. So it's like, I just talking about it for me. How does a business position itself to make investors interested, right? That's one. And if I'm moving to an investor, what are some of the things I need to look at? What's the right way to approach them?
So in regards to like the first question about how do you make the company more appealing, it's all about traction, right? So I say to my team, we have to move very quickly in launching a product into the marketplace to be able to have users, to be able to have traction, to be able to, right? When we launch Adjuma, our MVP, first week of March. Within a week, we had 200 users. We had, I think by the first 30 days, we were getting about 2,500 users engaging on the platform on a weekly basis. And we're already hitting 15 countries. So today, we are getting engagement from 15 countries on Adjuma on a weekly basis, right? That's traction. So if I'm any good investor, when I'm sitting there, I'm looking at, all right, well, there's something here, right? Because at least we can show that this is something the users want. We have employers that are signing up. We have engagement in multiple different countries. So that's traction. If you can package all of that, and sit in front of investors, and this goes to your second question, don't be afraid to cold call people, and people and they have money and all of these things, right? In our culture, asking for money is a little bit difficult. People don't tend to do that. But look, if you're running a company, you want to make money, you want to run profit, you got to pay people. You have to be comfortable in going to, and you're not asking them money for you to go pay your school bills or anything like that. You're asking them money as an investment so that they can make 2, 3x, 5x down the line, right? At any given time. So you have to be comfortable in talking about money and all these things, but you need to understand how those things work too. Fundraising, it's not easy, right? Talking about equity and investment, it's not easy. So there's an entire infrastructure.
Yeah, that was.
Right, that needs to have. And it's funny because, right, on my team, all of my tech guys on the team, everyone that we hired, we gave them equity, right? Yeah. So they have ownership of, the company. And I remember there was a meeting where I was talking about the valuation of the company, and it was silence on the call. I was like, why are you guys so quiet? Because they didn't even know what equity is, how to use it, how powerful equity is, especially when you're in a startup company and all of these things, the valuation and all of these things. None of that, was apparent to them. So we had to go through and have these conversations and explain, you have 100,000 shares of the company.
Now take us through.
This is what it means. If you have 100,000 shares of the company and the company's valuation is $10 million, now think about what does that mean for your 100,000 shares that you have and all of those things, right? And then there's also cliffing, right? So awards, when you issue shares to employees, it's on a cliff cycle. A cliff cycle is essentially a period of time in which a portion of those shares are going to mature that actually becomes to the employee, right?
Oh.
So if you come into my company and I give you 10,000, I'll give you 10,000 shares, and I'll say to you, you have 10,000 shares on a 4-year cliff cycle, right? So that means every year, a third of that 10,000 actually matures and you have it. You now actually have it. But if you leave, before that first year, all of that goes back, right? If you leave after the second year, then the remaining 2 years will go back and so on. Again, but that was something that the team didn't know, right? Didn't understand. We had to kind of talk through that and talk about what does that mean, and and the impact of all of that means to the team.
How do you evaluate the equity in terms of, okay, this person I'm giving you this percentage, this person I'm giving you this percentage? How does that conversation usually go?
It's a mixture of things, right? Because it's you utilize equity not just as part of a compensation, but you utilize equity as a tool, as a motivation tool, right? As well, right? So, and a performance, right? Because, right, if you are, if I truly believe in your ability to be able to drive my product and get us to be successful, I'll say to you, look, if you can hit these particular goals, then this equity belongs to you, right? If you can hit this particular goals, this equity belongs to you, and so on. So it's a motivating tool for certain people, right? Because, okay, now, if we successfully launch the products, then they have the equity. So it's a mixture of, it depends on who it is. It depends on where in the business they're sitting, right? If someone is sitting in technology, they probably get a little bit more than someone that is, not in technology, or someone that is in the revenue generation side of the business. They'll get a little bit more than, right? It really depends. Their seniority is important, right? If you have a head of, equity is important.
Yeah.
If they are in sales, probably less equity, but more commission, right? All of these different things. So it depends on, but it's a form of a compensation because it provides a total compensation. Yeah. But then it's also a tool to motivate and inspire performance.
Wow. A whole business school. Does it work the same with investors? Say maybe approach an investor and say, do you give them the amount you want them to invest?
Well, you always want to have an idea of how much you're fundraising before you go start fundraising, right?
So then they now equate that to a percentage of your company.
Yeah, so I'll give you a good idea. So you have a company, right? And you want to fundraise $100,000, or you want to fundraise $100,000, and you say, okay, me as the owner of the company, I am equating $100,000 to 10% of my company.
Right.
So you take that, you start fundraising to raise that $100,000. Now that could be one investor, or that could be 25 investors, as long as you hit your target, right? But also remember, anytime you exceed that $100,000, it changes the valuation a little bit because the percentage changes, right? Right? If you go more than $100,000, now it's no more than 10%, right? The more investors that you have, the problematic it gets sometimes, right? Because they will all have opinions, right? And sometimes some investors will come in and they will say to you, well, I'm going to give you, I want a board seat. I want to sit on your board in the company, for $100,000. I'll tell you right now, that's a terrible deal, right? Because,
Guys.
right? Because, right? Because if you want to sit on my board, that means you have a say in the direction of the company. You're a board of director. You have a vote in a say of my company. That's going to cost you at least $1 million. Right? I'm not just going to give up my right as
just like that
as a company owner like that. No, because that's a seat that is coveted, right? So you don't want to just be giving out, board seats because someone said, "Oh, you're fundraising $100,000. I'll give you $100,000 just to be there." Right? If you want a board seat, give me $1 million. But then that also changes the valuation of the company, right? If $1 million is 10%, then that changes the valuation of the company as well.
Wow. That's interesting. Manage relative. No, before that. Yeah. So back to the investment question. So you have an amount that you want to fundraise. Right. You tell them you equate that to a percentage. So it works the same way with like the employees with the cliffing idea you said. So that means after every 3 years or maybe a particular number of years, then it can mature. Does it work the same way?
Not necessarily, right? Because if you think about it, when I start a company, so every company that I start, I will always get 10 million shares.
Okay.
Right? And out of that 10 million, I would say 5% of it I put into what is called like stock options, right? Employee stock options,
Okay.
right? So that 5% of that 10 million is what I'm going to be giving out to employees and all of these things, right? So it's weighted very differently. Now, when you get investors, I don't want to get too technical, and we'll say here but once you start getting investors, the shares start to get diluted. That's a whole nother conversation that we're not going to have here.
Please, we'll bring him back for that conversation.
We'll have that conversation. But when you start to have investors come in, right? So if you have 50%, depending on the terms, that 50% can become 25%, right? So it starts to get diluted, in different ways and so on. So, but if you are, a senior member of the team and you started early, or you're a co-founder, obviously your 30% goes a long way, but it's just a different valuation.
Last thing before the next two questions. You said something about money is relative.
Yeah, money is relative.
Can you explain?
Money comes and goes. Right? Money is relative in the sense that you have to respect money, when you have it. You have to respect money when you don't have it, right? But it's relative, in the sense, it's not something that you're going to sit there and say, how many times have you sit there and say, well, if I have money, I'm going to do this, and that, and then you actually get the money. And
you do that.
No.
The first thing you think about is what you were not thinking about.
Right, exactly. And you don't do any of it, right? So that's what I mean about money. Money is relative, right? Because it's not a constant thing. You work towards it, you achieve it sometimes you don't, so just like time, money is not on your side. Until you get to the point where the tools and tricks to be able to bend money to your will, and time to your will, it's always going to be relative.
What's one valuable lesson and then a quote that you live by ever since you started? From the Nima to now,
trust first, right? I trust people's abilities to do their job, right? And when I have people around me, I bring them around me because I know how good they are, and I bring them on, to do their job. So I'm always, I trust that when you are doing what you are here to do, you are doing it, and you're gonna do a hell of a job on it, right? So to me, that's important, right? So I'm always, that's a lesson that's through and through. A quote, I don't know.
You don't have one?
I'm not a quote guy.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe I can just quote, Osajifu, said,
one of the boys asked the question before you came. I'm asking for him in case he doesn't get it. So he said, can you please, what was the question? Link him to Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. Everybody wants to be linked to Steph Curry, man. That guy is a machine, man. I've seen him make some shots, man.
You're crazy.
He's just a machine. He's built different.
Yeah, he's a machine.
He's not like
just
us.
Like Gimbala. You've mentioned so many business. Before we have a last session called Repeat and Complete. But before that, can you just talk about AUMA a little bit? Like the mission, the vision, what the goal is? Because I like the idea.
Yeah.
And let me just share a funny story. So I was working with someone on campus when I was in level 200, I started UI, and he was building something like AUMA. He was freelance something. So similar to Upwork and Fiverr and all that. And this guy reached out for designs and all that. I charged him 500 Ghana cedis. That's less than $50.
Yeah.
I did the work, delivered, and the guy ghosted me.
Oh, wow.
And he actually used the design. If he didn't use the design, I'm not vexed.
Right.
He used the design to today. I remember, I think, last year he texted me on LinkedIn. Till today, I've not replied because I was so hurt. I'm not even good.
Why didn't you? I mean, you have intellectual property. Why didn't you?
I didn't want to fight for it. I was new to, in the design field. I felt like, wow, this guy just played my mind just like that. Anyways, AUMA.
Yeah. So I mean, we say in AUMA, we build a company to connect 1 million Ghanaians to 1 million jobs and beyond, right? So it's a platform where you can have both employers are posting jobs, you have talent, any user that's looking for a job can go in there and see those jobs and communicate. Now, what's cool about AUMA is, and which I'm incredibly excited for this feature. We have this refer and earn feature, right? Okay. Where if you refer your friend to a job that's open and they get hired, you get paid, right? Yeah. So we're monetizing because, one of the things that I saw a lot in my career in talent acquisition is, people that refer people, they know them really well, they worked with them on all of these things, are usually very successful. So we wanted to monetize that aspect of it. But then also, if you think about the staffing industry, if you think about all these recruiters that are in companies that are getting paid to recruit for those companies, having a platform where they don't necessarily have to be associated to that company, but they can recruit and make money off of.
Crazy.
If you're an employee in Ghana and you can have a recruiter that has a experience of working at Microsoft or Spotify, think about that, right? Think about what they can bring to the table, where they can find someone and put them in the job for you here in Ghana. So refer and earn is pretty cool, where people will monetize and make money. Now, there's a lot of controls to it, right? We want to make sure this is Ghana. People are gonna people are gonna send people. So there's controls. If you're submitting people and they're not making it to a certain level of the hiring process, you get suspended and so on and so forth. So we created a lot of controls there. But then also employers can add assessments, right? They can build pipelines, build pools. There's interview schedule and module in there where you can do all of that in the platform as an employer. If you're a talent, you know that, okay, that job is real, that employer is real, because everybody's vetted both on talent and employer side. It's a clean platform, so you're not dealing with ads and viruses on the platform. And you can engage with employers. You can send messages to employers. You can like, share, and all of these different things, that you can do on LinkedIn, so you can do similarly. And then as we continue to grow, we're building communities on AUMA, right? So you can have your UX, UI community, you can have, your marketing communities and so on. And those people essentially are available for hire for any employer that has a project that wants to go into a community. Hey, I'm looking for a UX, UI team to work on a project for me. Where do I go on AUMA? All of that is in there. But at the core of it, and I say this to my team all the time, I want even the watches seller that's on the corner of the road that is looking for someone to come wash dishes should be able to find someone on AUMA, right? So either the watches seller, the kinke seller, or a Fortune 50, Fortune 500 company that's looking for a senior executive, right? They can do that, on the platform. So when you come to AUMA, when you come to Ghana, when the one place that you go to find jobs is going to be AUMA.
AUMA is a company. Are you guys hiring?
We're always hiring.
We are always hiring.
We're always hiring.
Yeah. I want the people watching to get jobs.
Yeah,
so
we're always hiring. So, and then we work with it. We have a lot of employers that will send us jobs to post. So we make recommendations. So if you're on the platform, if you build a profile, all of those things, add your CV, your experiences, and you get recommended to those jobs. But on my company, the company in itself, we're always hiring. We're looking for head of marketing right now. So if you have marketing experience, feel free to reach out to the team. We're going to be hiring information security folks. We're going to be hiring sales agents, customer service agents. So we're always hiring.
If you get the job from here, please refer and end.
Refer and look, we have a really nice campus in Pantang where. And I'm sure you guys are gonna come.
Yeah, we'll come there. We'll come there.
If you are employed at AUMA, you can work in the office. We're a remote first company.
Okay.
So there's flexibility in when you work. You get fed breakfast and lunch, right? Which I think it's important. My head of operations is like,
does he agree?
No, it's like no one else in Ghana does that. It's like, but it's different.
We are
right?
different.
You're different, so so you have that, you have a lounge, you can hang out, play games and all these things. We have a studio So most people in Ghana have creative backgrounds. So if you want to record or do stuff, there's stuff there to do.
Yeah, we'll come and do a tour there for them to see. All right, my last and favorite part. This one is like Q&A. I just asked you the question and then repeat and complete. So I will say a phrase, you repeat it, and then you complete it.
Okay. You're gonna get a trial.
Okay, so my name is.
Okay, Gimbala Sankari.
No, my name
is Gimbala. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying that because most people don't repeat it.
Okay. All right.
All right. So first one, when I'm not working, you can find me.
When I'm not working, you can find me watching my beloved Manchester United teams. The best team in the world.
I don't watch football, but I know
the best team in the world. That's it.
Everybody here is doing this.
Best team in the world.
Do you have something to say? That's now
the chokers. But also, right, I have two lovely girls, so I'm usually, they're keeping me busy.
One thing people would be surprised to know about me is.
One thing that people would be surprised to know about me is I'm somewhat an introvert, even though I'm very extroverted. I like my solace. I like my peace. So I like to spend time with myself and my thoughts as well. To have all these ideas, you got to reset.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Third one, the first app I open in the morning is.
The first app I open in the morning is WhatsApp.
To check,
right? Yeah. Because so I'm in the States. If I'm in the States or I'm in Europe, usually Ghana is ahead. So by the time I wake up, there's a ton of messages, that people send. So that's the first app I open up, and sometimes I will read them, and then I will refuse to reply because you wake up and you just don't want to
true.
And then they catch up.
Having a company is a family. You have a lot of people that are just. If I could have any superpower, it would be.
If I could have any superpower, it will be having no superpowers.
My favorite way to unwind after a long day is.
My favorite way to unwind after a long day. I don't know. I mean, I get home, I cook a lot, so that unwinds, listen to some music, Spotify going on, so I guess that's the easier way.
If I could travel anywhere in the world right now, I would go to.
If I could travel anywhere in the world right now, where I would go to? Man, I've been to
a lot of places.
I've been to a lot of places.
You've been to Japan?
I have not been to Japan. That's on the list, right? So yeah, I would say Japan. I'll do Japan. I'll do Malaysia.
Okay.
I think that those are pretty cool.
If I could swap lives with anyone for a day, it would be.
If I could swap lives with anyone for a day, it would be nobody.
I like that one. Yeah. If I could only eat one food for the rest of my life, it would be.
we were
talking about food. I just remembered
about this. Yeah. So if I could eat, man, they're all Ghanaian dishes.
Okay.
Right, all Ghanaian dishes, but it would have to be rice balls and some groundnut soup, or some kotumbre and some yams, some boiled yams with some salted fish and some boiled eggs, and you get some.
That's very descriptive.
Some oil on it. Yeah, because I'm hungry right now.
And last one, if I could swap jobs with anyone for a day, it would be.
If I could swap jobs with anyone for a day, it would be nobody. Right? Like I absolutely love what I do, and my team and the relationships that I have. I've never in my life looked at someone's life and be like, I want to be that like person. Yeah, because you want to be in charge of your own destiny, right? You control your own narrative, right? So you have to create your own luck and then go forward from there.
Like that. All right. For the people watching, right, still young like me, 20-year-old children, any advice for them? Maybe they're getting into business, they're looking for jobs. When you're done, please tell them to subscribe.
Look, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the challenge, right? I think I'm not too old, right? I'm in my mid-30s, and I'll say, at any given point in my life, I've said yes to the different challenges. Life is never about the straight journey of A, B, C, right? Sometimes you take different paths, but be open to the challenge, be open to the opportunities. Don't be afraid to fail, right? Don't be afraid to ask a question. And don't be afraid to tell people that, you don't like what they're doing, or they didn't do it right, or they didn't do the vision that you gave them to do, right? Because I think that's also important, right? You don't just say yes, right? All of those things are important. You should subscribe to Reagan.
We'll be back channel, with the business
episode.
Yeah.
Go on Adjuma, create a profile. We'll connect you to employers. And I look forward to connecting with you all.
Adjuma.io, right?
Adjuma.io.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching this episode, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you.
And it's a wrap.